From the Gordons' home, we drive through the city and over the bridge to Horseshoe Bay. There, we catch the ferry across the wide Strait of Georgia, where we stop in Nainamo to collect our hire cars and have a lunch picnic. Setting off from treed suburbs, we pass the rather crazy Vancouver House building with few signs of life on the city streets, before crossing Burrard Inlet on the Lion Bridge and sliding past the enormous Easter weekend traffic queues down to the ferry. Waiting to set off from Horseshoe Bay, looking out over the sound. There's lumber in the water. Busyness of Horseshoe Bay. The flag of British Columbia flying above us. Heading out into the Sound. Where?
Oh, right there, left. Geese.
Flock of geese heading over Bowen Island. And then looking up Howe Sound, up towards Whistler and all the rest. And then looking back towards Vancouver. I wonder if that's why they call it the poop deck. And here, Jane keeps everyone in good order. Moving up Howe Sound. A little town of Gibson appearing. Fresh green on the trees as we come into Nainamo. We ducked in for some art supplies and had an icy picnic in the park. We pulled in for some prawns at French Creek in Parkesville, and then headed inland on the Pacific Rim Highway, past the hydro dams and then down the Kennedy River to the Pacific and the Middle Beach at Tofino.
By some neighbor who didn't like it. And I'm sure it was true for a lot of people. So that was it. You disappeared, and he was. They'd last heard of him working in some forestry. Relations came out because they cleaned off everything they could build trees with in Scotland, and then cleaned everything out that they could build ships with in the east coast of Canada. Yeah. And then at the turn of the century they came here and went, oh my gosh, we'll be able to build ships for the next 5 years anyway. And we cleaned it off. It was very strong.
stopping for a look at the lovely
Kennedy.
the river on the way down to Tofino. There it heads towards the coast. And thence it comes from the mountains. Still have some snow on above the clouds. Lovely stuff. Just look at the colours in that water. Just gorgeous. Two enormous old cedars left on a pit stop, disappearing into the gods. Mossy forest grows, ferns and lichens.
Kennedy Lake on the west of the island, with adjacent roadworks, towards Hidden Peak in the clouds.
And here we are in Tofino, out of the cedars and pines onto the seashore. Fantabulous. Great skeins of geese flying over. And this wonderful old beach. Wind-battered, storm-battered forest. Low tide, so lots of shiny sand. And then tucked in amongst the trees there is our little lodge. Part B of this establishment. Just lovely. And then out again, looking out towards the Sound and the islands, to the wild Pacific.
Looking back at our lodge and then enjoying all the literal textures of the beach. This fine-looking bald eagle enjoying the late sun and pulling apart what might be prey, but looks more like just a lump of weed or a nest, maybe. Joined by our hosts, we do some
Exploring in the rocks.
you hear their voice, right? I don't know what they are.
Oh, Daddy, we could have a mud fight.
Do you hear their voice? Quite a high pitch.
Would you like to, in a tiny,
Roll down the left of it?
Having failed to promote a mud fight, Katie Rose resorts to gymnastics instead.
The sun disappears over the Pacific on this glorious evening, looking up straight towards Mears Island. We're out again towards the Pacific. The sea crashes onto the rocks below the Gordon's cottage here. Looking down the cliff.
Outfits took Cam's whatever his coat, whatever was really noticeable about Cam, and then went, sort of scurrying out the side door, and the guy, there he is, chased after Dad, and Cam went out the other door, and the guy chased after Dad, and Dad thought it was hilarious. I'll have to ask him if he remembers. And then gets him, because we had these little rubber darts things that we had. And got Dad, and Dad turned around and went, hello. And he went, oh.
Late night, going into early morning, and over there, a full Easter moon shining over the bay. A little closer dawn. Robin in the tree above our lodge.
We cross the headland to visit the beaches on the other side.
Easter Saturday morning from Sandy Beach, looking over towards Mackenzie Beach. Glorious. That's Canada for you. Having a look at the great big heads of mussels which grow so prolifically on this Pacific West Coast. Just thick with them, going down to the little anemones before you get to the sand. The anemones talking in a little rock pool. Beautiful green. Anemones along the rock base there. I'm starting to get into the gorgeous different colours of the seaweeds. The long thin ones, the sort of brushy scrubbly ones, dark greens, and then into the kelps and seagrasses. A couple more of the purple starfish there.
I find Australians so friendly.
Have a good day.
We were rather delighted to meet up with a couple of Australian kelpies. exercising their owners.
Osprey above the beach.
Well, here we are at breakfast, and we're really connecting because we're on our mobiles. Maybe we're texting each other. Perhaps Donald and Suzanne are texting each other. I'm waiting for them to stop texting each other while I'm waiting also for the coffee. Where's the coffee?
Donald spent a while wrangling us a canoe outing for the day, and on the way out we passed a grey whale and her calf. We learnt that the small islands opposite the town are sacred burial places as we prepare to head out over the bay.
To relax for holidays, he goes and sits in traffic in Vancouver. So Andy, you have the same problem, do you?
That's his idea of a good time. I just sit under float planes. I really enjoy listening to them take off.
We do have a question. Last night we saw these birds that were flying like ducks. Huge, big, the longest line of birds I've ever seen. In
Straight line or in a V?
V.
Good long straight line.
Yeah.
That's geese.
Yeah. So there are several different species of reefs and rocks, rocky shoreline, and often onshore winds that are blowing anything, boat that loses control somehow will get blown into the shore and wash up on the rocks or on the surf beach. So very, very dangerous shoreline, lots and lots of wrecks out there, and that's what your supplies had to come up. So you're waiting for groceries and everything else, building supplies, tools, the doctor, your loved ones coming to visit, they would have to come on that ship. And the ship would often be delayed by bad weather and or mechanical breakdowns. So that was just life on the coast. You came to expect it. That's just the way it goes. Welcome you to Mears Island Tribal Park. Please come ashore and walk the shoreline and explore the trails, but leave your chainsaws on the boat. We do not allow logging in our tribal park. Now, if it was just him, maybe they would have just thrown him in jail and go on with their work. But there's a whole lot of people there, including international media and lots of other environmentalists and First Nations and so on. So the case goes before the court. First judge looks at it and says, I don't have authority to rule on this issue. This is outside of my jurisdiction. It gets bumped up through the court system, where eventually it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, where a panel of Supreme Court justices looks at a whole bunch of evidence and says, we don't have authority to rule on this issue. This is outside of our jurisdiction. People said, but wait a minute, you're the highest court in the land. And they said, yes, we are. And this isn't a legal issue. It's a political issue. So it's not for the courts, it's for the politicians. So you need to sit down at the treaty table, First Nations and provincial and federal governments, sort out who actually owns this land. Until you've done that, what we have the authority to do is put a moratorium on it, says you can't log it.
We pulled up on Mears Island, where there was a replica of the canoes, fashioned out of a single tree. We were then welcomed onto the island, Hiltu'uis, and set off into the forest.
individual spot varies drastically depending on where you are. There's a spot not too far from here that averages over 20 feet of rain annually, and on a record year got 28.5 feet. So if you prefer metric, that's about 8.5 meters of rain in 1 year. Lots and lots and lots of rainfall. There's another spot just off the highway near the lake that got 489 millimeters or 18.3 inches in 24 hours.
Down we go. In a little tannin town, we see the gelatinous egg mass of the salamander. Group portrait at the Cedar of Life, and paying due reverence. Up we come again, and set off back to the boats.
I stayed home and watched the tide come in over Middle Beach before a jaunt to Tofino.
View of the Middle Beach Lodge establishment at the end of a simply stunning Tofino day. Just the forest and people around the back of the beach. Great big spruces and things. Not many firs up here, it's too wet for them. Lumber piled up as it is in Canada. Streams sliding out across the sand. And the wonderful colours of the ocean greenery down the rugged rocks to the mosses and tannin coloured water flowing into the sea. Subtle little currents as they head for the ocean.
On time for a quick sketch before another luscious sunset.
We went into St Columba Church for Easter Sunday, welcomed by the Reverend Jennifer Marlow.
We admired local crafts in the House of Himwitsa First Nations Art Gallery, and we dropped in at the local brewery and the bakery. Cox Beach was a bit of a shock. Cold, grey, covered in logs, and we hadn't bought our bear spray.
Afternoon visit to Long Beach as the cloud comes in. These little spikes of rock sticking up, crowned by trees. And then we take the gap and head down the Long Beach. A few hardy surfers trying their luck. By Queensland standards, not real impressive wave scenery.
This is the kind of thing we have in mind when you say surf beach.
Looking out from Grice Bay on the inland side of the Tofino Peninsula. Big valleys going up into the inland.
There's a tiny hamlet on the promontory of Indian Island, and magnificent views all around into the Clayoquot Sound. We admired a common merganser on the way home and stocked up at a cupboard-sized grocery store.
Monday broke wet and cloudy, with a bald eagle perched disconsolate at breakfast. We took advantage of the warm interior to catch up, and Robert did a little sketch.
In the tossing waters off the rocks, we spot a sea otter frolicking.
I didn't know Beth, I'd say it's got a pop on her chest.
Yeah, looks like it, doesn't it? Can you zoom onto it?
Yeah, as much as I can.
The rain eased off just enough to venture back onto the beach again.
Wonderfully rich flora at the back edge of the beach. There's a forest drainage system. Cascades into a little catch channel and then heads off down to the sea. Old man's beard everywhere is evidence of the very wet nature of this country. Up into the forest, all the branches covered in this magnificent big tree. Stream-side patterns as another rivulet pours out of the forest. Huge, sturdy trees in there.
We went down to the harbour for dinner at 1909 Kitchen. Enjoyed a delicious meal before returning for hot chocolates by the fire.
Donald took us on a morning walk down the Tonquin track. In 1811, the brutal Captain Jonathan Thorne sailed the Tonquin into this sound to trade. In bartering with Tlaoquehat, he threw back furs at him, a huge insult. A party under Chief Wikaninish later arrived to parley, but at a signal, clubbed the crew to death. The few survivors detonated the ship, and the wreck was not to be found for over 100 years.
When the Americans started coming through here, late 1700s, they were all called Boston men. So the British and Spanish and the Boston men. Boston men got a bit of a reputation for their dealings with the natives. And because, of course, in the US, there's been at a time when they did a lot of shooting of the natives.
Wonderful, great flights of Canada geese calling as they head north overhead. Ah, that's better.
It's up. The natives up north call them fish eagles. So I don't know why. I don't know what makes them an osprey rather than a member of the eagle family. The man was nice and amazing fish. Look at that head going around.
The fallen trees and recycling through rotting that happens in this wet rainforest. These lovely caves that happen underneath the trees here. Like great dens. And then up to all the fallen, growing the new. To the sky.
Heading back down the coast, we dropped in at the Quisitas Visitor Centre, a nearby sphagnum moss bog. We went down to Ucluelet for a picnic lunch before crossing back. We stopped to admire the magnificent Cathedral Grove and goats on the roof in Coombs before overnighting in Parkesville. Huddling in the bitter wind at the Quisitas Visitor Centre, we look out over the Wickaninnish Beach and Bay in the Pacific Rim National Park, which was the site of various bits of wartime training. Much bigger Pacific rollers coming in here. Sadly, the museum is closed today.
The stunted little pines of the sphagnum moss bog. Amazing, these little tiny trees after seeing these giants.
We spotted an American robin trying to trick us.
Oh, no, awful hurts. Just nesting around here. So then you think, oh, I want to eat it. You trace out, that's easy to move it back. So then she'll lead you away from the nest.
View from our picnic spot in the Glulet. Coast Guard and other good looking boats, and in the aquarium.
Okay.
Shortly after Port Alberni, at the top of Cameron Lake, we drop in to Cathedral Grove.
Some remaining original grove forest. Absolutely huge. The bigger one's some 800 years old. Most of the newcomers in there 300. Huge. Going up, I don't know, 50, 60 metres at least. Lots of fall in these forests. No slugs everywhere. And wet. Old man's beard. Deep in the forest, something stirred. Beautiful, crystal clear water. That's the question.
I know. That picture Donna walks across that log up there.
Yeah, just very slightly younger than Notre Dame. 76 metres high tree. Disappears into the sky. And the other cathedral. Gorgeous.
We stopped in at Goats on the Roof in Coombs. Not on the roof today, but got to say hello. What an amazing array of stock.
View from our room in Parkesville. Looking over back towards the mainland. Kites on the beach.
So yeah, so I'm flying this kite. So let's just dip off to it, right?
Looking way up the straits there. Low tide by the look. This great little old 60s hotel.
I can like see the people in the window like looking at me in the kite.
Katie Rose on the run again.
I think we should put the kite down.
Whoa, now there's a brute ute.
Little flock of Brent geese on the mud flats in front of Parkesville. Our modest little hotel amidst the new grand high-rise offerings with snow in the back. Morning view in Parkesville, across to Wastiti and Pitsata, and ferries on the beach.
Sandpipers dance with the waves between the western gulls. There's an all-grey youngster on the left there.
Small flotilla of the Brent geese coming in to join the seagulls. That does look more like ducks actually. These two have been sparring for a little while. I think Ravens won out this round.
A pair of whimbrel with their elegant curved beaks probe the sand for nematodes and crustaceans.
A baldy patrolling our beach. Boat traffic down the strait. And a little fishing boat or something going past a big freighter in the distance.
There he goes. He's down on the beach. See?
A young bald eagle getting hassled by the ravens.
This is magnificent. Look, the sky just really hot.
Heading northwest up the coast, we were delighted to be ambushed by the jets at Comox and popped in for a look. We picnicked at Miracle Beach and then turned inland up the Campbell River. We stopped at Strathcona Lodge and also the Buttle Narrows Bridge, and then wriggled on to Gold River, high above the Muckalat Channel. These are the RCAF snowbirds who train here each April. Under the dogfights, the Comox 19-wing airbase is home to 407 long-range patrol, 418 training, 442 search and rescue, and 435 transport and rescue. From the Avro Canada CF-100 Canuck to the well-known McDonnell CF-101B Voodoo. Admiring the Voodoo close up and the long skinny Starfighter, whilst overhead dogfights continue. B3A Shooting Star. The Argus was a great anti-sub plane in service from 1957 to 88. It set an unrefueled flight record of 31 hours. The Gordons prepare to board the Boeing C-113 Labrador for some search and rescue.
The workhorses, tracker, submarines, Sea Knight, of course the old Dakota.
From war to agriculture. These sheds could be in Australia.
Here's little me looking at the view in Miracle Beach Provincial Park. And then it must have been chilly because it was April, so we went and sat on the picnic bench in the sun and tried our best to warm up.
A glimpse of the Campbell River where my dad, Miles, caught a big salmon so long ago. Strathcona.
Lodge on the side of the mountain on the road to Gold River. And down the Campbell River Valley. And up to the ferocious, irresponsible clear cutting on the tops of these great hills. And decades to recover if it ever does.
These are cold, slow-growing forests. Donald's dad worked on this road up to the top of the hydro system.
Donald's being the daredevil. Tuttle Narrows Bridge. Extremely sturdy, fast stream below us. The hills beyond.
These upper reaches of the Campbell River should normally look like a lake. Currently, they are almost back to river status. Still providing recreation for some.
Amazing cliffs above us. Huge, rocky cliffs.
This is the Bottle Lake Reservoir. Unfortunately, looking a little dry, a little bit too like Kariba for my liking. Luckily, there are some locals taking advantage. This beautiful lake is providing some excellent spider habitat. Much better spider fishing than trout fishing. Luckily, the trout have got somewhere to go and they head up the Elk River this time of year.
Our motel in chilly Gold River. Robert communing with the dragons, and tomorrow we look forward to our voyage on the U-Chuck.